Hi, so I made this video to address the problem with support at the moment. It's kind of in response to the video that Freak made that I'm showing you on your screen. We're not going to watch through that now, but I'll put a link in the description. It's worth checking it out if you haven't seen it. Essentially, Freak, who used to be a caster of the LCS, is now on the balance team, made this video talking about some of the tweaks they are doing to the support role and asked for some feedback from, analysts, high-low players, etc., who have some insight, and I'm hoping that I'm able to help out. For those of you who don't know who I am, I'm a caster who worked full-time on the LPL in 2022. I also featured at MSI, and I used to be a pro player back in 2017, played for XL as a support, and just, as another factor, last season, 200 LP master playing support. So that's why I feel like, I'm comfortable addressing some of the points that I'm going to go through in this video. So for me, the current issue with support is the extreme prevalence of range supports picked specifically to have complete control of wave priority and the ability to consistently and easily harass their opponents. I think it's first important to understand why the meta is where it is, and I think there's a range of system changes that led us here, but the two major ones were the teleport changes in 12.1 and the durability patch in 12.10. So the style of play was unlocked by removing the answers to it. Picking an engaged support to answer a range support like Ashe became harder with the durability patch. And for those who don't know what I'm talking about, in 12.10, there was this durability based stat package, which was for all champions in the game. And basically now, whittling down your opponents is significantly more effective since engaged supports often can't contest wave level 1, lose the ability to reach level 2 first, and then by level 3 are often at enough of a health disadvantage that an engage no longer works. The durability patch means you can not simply land a naught Q at level 3 and reliably blow up your opponent, no matter what the health disadvantage was. This is compounded by changes we saw, such as the nerf to Second Wind, where they reduced the base healing, the buff to Scorch, where they gave it 5 damage at every level, which came on 12.14, and really significantly, the nerf to potions. So we saw a 30 health nerf to potions that you buy from the shop. We also saw a nerf to biscuits as well, which really made that whittling down be more effective. And for those who remember way back in the day when it was just like constant engage melee support meta, we also in 9.23 saw Aftershock nerfed, which obviously was a long time ago. But back then, Aftershock was so strong, even if you were like 40% HP, you could just all in and you were basically immortal with that Aftershock. There was no real recourse to finish you off, and it made all in significantly more easy to find. Now, the next one I want to address is a teleport nerf, and this is super significant for those who, again, don't know what I'm talking about. Patch 12.1 changed it at the start of 2022 so that you can no longer target ally minions or wards with base teleport. At 14 minutes, you can then target minions or wards again once it's turned into Unleashed teleport. And prior to this, an overpushing bot lane could be destroyed by an early teleport behind them. Since that's no longer possible, they only have to worry about jungle presence as a response to their pressure. There's a lot of reasons. That's a reason a lot of pros have the perception that playing to bot is the best strategy at the moment, and the first jungler to effectively impact the lane can end up winning the game. Prior to the TP nerfs, there was a big knock-on effect from ganking top that would impact the rest of the game. If a top laner burns their TP to rescue their lane state, then they no longer have a TP to match their opponent's TP bot lane. If a top laner doesn't TP to rescue their lane, then they can lose out massively in the matchup to significant enough of a point where they will bleed out over the rest of the laning phase. It made it a difficult decision, and it would have impacts on the rest of the map if you were to gank top early. There were other changes that led us to this scenario that aren't quite as important as those two as to where the game currently is. A big one is the value of turret plates at the moment being 175 gold. This was a pretty recent change, but obviously turret plates haven't been in the game for a super long time, but relatively, quite a while now. But it does make it extremely beneficial to start picking up plates in the bot lane. And due to fortification, for those who don't know what fortification is, it's where mid and top lane towers are super tanky before 5 minutes. That's not the case in bot lane. It was made to kill lane swapping, and it means as early as wave 2 in the bot lane or wave 3, you can start to get pressure on the enemy tower and pick up plates, whereas mid and top have to wait till the 5-minute mark. Another thing is the increased value in neutral objectives. We saw in 12.14, dragons were buffed. Every dragon was buffed by 50%. The individual dragon, not the soul. The exception was Cloud was buffed by 100%. And so as a result, they're such a powerful objective to be able to take. And if your bot lane is winning, you're basically guaranteed to be able to pick up these dragons because they are so close to it, because they are the dictating factor in whether you're able to secure these dragons. Now, this kind of leads into another reason why these supports have been so potent and able to snowball. And that's because their economy is super high. And achieving early plates is a factor in it, but the major one has been the ability to quickly stack up their support item with the tribute passive. Ashe is a great example where with Hail of Blades, she can go for a quick 3-auto trade and receive all 3 procs of Tribute while also dealing a heavy amount of damage that can't really be matched by most supports. If both Ashe and her AD carry are able to connect at the same time, then the trade can be lane ending or even result in a kill or the enemy flash being burned. Typically, the economy for laners increases as the game goes on. So if you look at this, you can see the average gold per wave goes up, and that's because the gold cannons provide goes up as the game goes on, and there's also more frequent cannons as we get further into the game. The difference with support, though, is that you actually get the most gold in the early game, because as you're stacking a support item, that is where a lot of your gold generation comes from. And it's particularly with an issue with these champions that proc it quickly, because a typical enchanter like Lulu, Soraka, or Janna cannot trade so consistently and easily as to stack this item so fast, which is why it hasn't been as much of an issue previously. Mages like Xerath or Vel'Koz rely on hitting their tricky skill shots in order to stack quickly, whereas champions like Lux or Heimer have abilities that are super hard to avoid. Heimer especially can fan out his rockets, when he aims it close to himself and it just covers the whole lane to guarantee a hit. And then finally, the marksman champions we've seen in the support role, they can just auto-attack, which when you're playing like Caitlyn or Ashe, who have such high range, it's super easy. And not only does it give these champions increased gold, but also the advantage of early wards. An Ashe support can get her upgrade before phase back, and then give herself incredible safety in lane with the power of 3 wards per reset on top of a sweeper, and that's not even including her hawk shots. So now the next issue is the powerful early items being utilized by these supports. Support items are super cheap, and we've seen consistent issues when champions from other lanes have utilized them. You have things like your Moonstone being 2,500 gold, which if you pick up on a mid laner used to be the meta and used to be really potent. And the reason they're so cheap is because typically a support doesn't get as much gold, but it's just highlighted in the early game, they're able to generate so much gold that they can very quickly reach these spikes. That being said, it's not merely an issue with support items. We've seen Heimerdinger rushing Rylai's, an item that turns him from annoying to oppressive with his turrets perma slowing, and gives him a huge amount of bulkiness with the health and a load of HP to make him deal a lot of damage. We've also seen Umbral Glaive be a big issue, not only because of its incredible powerful effect, but how good the stats and build path are. Keria is someone who has fully utilized its power to great effect. You can see in this game against Quandong Freaks, game 1 he went Ashe, and game 2 he went Caitlyn. Both of them rushed the Umbral Glaive, getting that early lethality. Both of them went that Hail of Blades. And you're essentially able to rush the Serrated Dirk, which gives a ton of AD and some powerful lethality at a very affordable price, and then use that Hail of Blades in order to have devastating trades. If a marksman support comes back to lane with a Dirk and has Hail of Blades as the rune, they will most often do more damage than the enemy AD carry, let alone the enemy support. Champions like Lulu rely on the AD carry to provide most of the damage and hope to buff them to increase their output and survivability, but it's never going to compare to 2 powerful long-range marksmen who can deal as much as an AD carry on their own. Keria also utilize Barrier by using it early to take heavy trades and ensuring they have lane pressure. With a cooldown so short, by the time the enemy bot lane has restabilized with a reset, it would be back up again. However, by that point, control of the lane has already been lost. And the other thing to talk about is Umbral Glaive and its synergy with Zombie Ward. So once Umbral Glaive is completed, it's super quick to stack Zombie Ward, another rune given these AD carries fantastic power with added vision being applied, but importantly, you get an extra 18 AD when you've got 10 stacks. It also becomes almost impossible to have consistent vision when playing against a long-range champion that has Umbral Glaive, due to the fact that they can instantly clear a ward with a single auto attack, and with their range, they don't even have to put themselves in an uncomfortable position to do so. One of the best tools for a Nautilus to punish a ranged support is to catch them while warding, but these Umbral Glaive abusers can win the vision war while remaining relatively safe, and without an ability to establish vision control, it becomes extremely hard to find engages onto the enemy backline. Face checking into the fog of war is dangerous, and it's extremely hard to set up flanks, pincer movements, or other strategies when you have no information on the enemy team's location. As a final note, a reason why these marksman supports are so oppressive is the potential to flex them. Playing double marksman in the bot lane could be punished by an engaged support, but picking Nord or Leon in the first rotation could result in the Ashe being flexed into AD carry, and a pick like Braum being taken to neutralize them. Second rotation of bans does give the window to trim down some of the answers to engaged champs, but ultimately the same can be done in response by banning those engaged champs themselves. The ability to flex picks has always been a major problem in pro play, and this helps to cover some of the potential weaknesses an early Ashe pick should have. Now, I've talked a lot about why it's problematic and why we currently are at this point in the game, But I want to address some of the solutions that I have to these problems. And the best solution overall may utilize more than one of these, but not necessarily all of them. And I'll start by addressing the tools utilized by these picks. So the first one I want to look at is the support item, and that is the Spectral Sickle, which we have over here, and its upgrade path. And these items are a problem when champions can quickly and effectively stack them up, able to reach the quest far before the Tribute of War items, which is things like the Relic Shield up here, are able to. And so for me, I think that a flat nerf isn't necessarily the best solution, as it'll make it harder for more reasonable range supports to opt into these items. I think what they should do is increase the amount of gold per stack, but the time to stack should be increased by more. So for example, right now, every 10 seconds you get a charge for 20 gold. You could increase it from 20 gold to 30 gold, but make it so the time to accrue is doubled from 10 to 20. And for champions who build this item but aren't always able to make use of the stacks, this wouldn't have a massive impact, since the downtime they experience while sitting on 3 stacks wouldn't be as common. However, for champions like Ashe or Heimer, who were consistently using their stacks before they ever accumulated 3, would see a reduction in the rate at which they complete the item. The goal would be to bring the minimum time needed to complete the quest and the average time closer together. Another potential solution to the changes introduced by the durability patch would be to remove the health from these items. So the initial item, Spectral Sickle, offers 10 health, and then when upgraded, they offer 60 health. Since a lot of these supports are completing these items before first back, that extra 60 health can make a big difference in an all-in. By removing the health, you give them a bit more vulnerability, and then to compensate, any enchanters like Janet or Sona potentially could receive flat health buffs to compensate. Personally, I think that the tribute items should feel more high risk, high reward, and the tribute of war items like the Relic Shield should be the more defensive option that offers more safety. Now next we can talk about Hail of Blades, and this is a problem because a lot of these marksmen are abusing it. The exception is like Jhin, who goes Dark Harvest, but like we've seen Keria playing Caitlyn, playing Callista, playing obviously the Ashe. And right now, very few champions use this keystone as a primary rune outside of the support role. Kai'Sa, who used to use it, now prefers Lethal Tempo. Tristana has Lethal Tempo at a slightly lower use rate, and although picks like Twitch and Varus do make use of it for their AP builds, and occasionally for the Lethality Varus as well, there is very few champions without an alternative. I think the rune could easily be nerfed, changed, or reworked without impacting too many champs, but would help to significantly reduce the power of the marksman picks being played in the support role. And the final one, and I think even if we weren't seeing this problem, this item should have been nerfed because Umbral is so problematic. At the moment, I think the nerf should be, no matter what, that ranged champions only deal 2 damage to wards instead of 3. I also think you could increase the cooldown or cost, or another powerful solution would be to change the activate effect so when a ward spots you, instead of giving you a free sweeper effect for 8 seconds, and bear in mind, the normal sweeper is only for 6 seconds, even though it's a bigger radius, I think you should make it so you get to clear 1 ward, and then the effect drops again. Because being able to essentially have double sweeper is really oppressive, and the fact that you can sweep a huge area and quickly one-hit wards, and then walk back through with Umbral to verify that you didn't miss any, and do like a second sweeper pass-through, is far too much power. And so for these changes I mentioned, I think they're easy to address because they can either be changed in ways that specifically affect the range supports utilizing them, or are not used too much beyond the role of support. The problem with picks like Lux or Heimer is they don't rely on these tools, which is why they may need to be individually addressed, or power is given to melee supports to help fix the issues. So let's talk about those melee supports and giving power to them. Freak in his video did propose some fixes to them. If you actually look, like here's an example of the changes for Alistar, but I don't think this is going to do anything significant, especially since some of the things they're buffing are scalings like AP scalings here for Alistar, which aren't going to come into play in lane, and honestly, you're not building AP on Alistar, so barely plays a part in the game at all. His lack of ability to contest the wave until level 3 isn't going to be fixed by reducing his mana cost and buffing those ratios, and in fact, I feel like here the nerf to his ally passive heal is going to make it even harder to contest picks like Heimer or Ashe, as it doesn't matter how healthy you are if your AD carry is at 10% HP. So I have 2 proposed changes that would help them out against these lanes, and both revolve around Tribute of War items, which is the Relic Shield item that you buy typically if you're playing a melee support, but generally the more defensive one where you get stacks from executing minions. Now, the first change I'm proposing is simply increase the health regen on the item. Right now, it has 25% health regen, and the tier 2 version that it upgrades into, the Targon's Buckler, goes up to 50%. You could just increase that amount to like 50% for the tier 1, 100% for the tier 2, and this could help to shake off some of the harass that enemy range supports are providing at the moment. But the better change, the one that I think is a really good one, is to give it back its old effect. And so the old version of the item, which you can see displayed here, it used to heal you and your nearest allied champion every time a stack was used. One of the current issues is that melee supports are zoned off wave 1, lose the race to level 2 on wave 2, and then the third wave is crashed, and while the AD carry is trying to harass on a tower, they're harassed to a point where an all-in is very hard to find. After that, the wave bounces, and the enemy bot lane can just wait until it's a more comfortable position if they're worried about an all-in, or if they feel confident they can continue to push and harass. For example, if they have cover from the jungler or a huge health advantage. By allowing melee supports to heal their AD carries, and potentially themselves, with this item, then it can help to shake off some of the consistent harass early so that all-in windows are easier to find. I also think this effect could be made more powerful in melee supports if there are concerns it could be oppressive on enchanters like Sona or Janna who utilize it to free scale. Now, this has been a pretty long video. It feels like I've been talking for a while, but just to summarize some final thoughts, as much as seeing a variety in supports and a move away from the Nautilus Leona meta is a huge positive for pro play, the current bot lane is too impactful, and the focus on stomping lane with these picks with limit dances isn't healthy. The AD carry buffs on 13.2 are not only going to make it worse, as although the changes were to crit itemization, which is utilized by AD carries and not supports playing marksman, it is just going to further solidify bot lane as the most impactful lane. Playing to crush bot lane and coming into mid game with the Caitlyn wielding IE plus Mythic will result in an almost certain loss for your opponents. I think answers to these supports need to be possible, and a more healthy support meta would have like a rock, paper, scissors scenario where passive lanes are punished by heavy harass lanes are punished by all-in lanes, and all-in lanes can't find purchase on passive lanes. Right now, it feels like heavy harass just beats everything, and although this is a simplified summary on bot lane and different picks have nuance, I think part of the issue was demonstrated by Keria. It doesn't matter if Ashe is banned if you can whip out Caitlyn, Jhin, or Kalista, whereas a buff to Naut is meaningless if it just results in Nautilus being banned and the same range supports continuing to operate. To anyone who listened to this whole video, I appreciate it. I did write a document with all these points before I made this video, so I'll link that in the description if you want to take a look, and you're welcome to leave a comment, message me on Twitter if you want to talk about this more and express your opinion. Thanks for watching. Bye.